I'm Justin Davis, and this is Drocamp's RC. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis. Today we're going to talk about the Speedybee flight controller. This is an F4 AIO with Bluetooth on there, and you can hook it up to any smartphone with Bluetooth. Open up their Speedybee app and you can make changes right on your flight controller, all the BetaFlight changes inside the app. It comes preloaded with BetaFlight 3.3 on there, and I mean, you can set up your entire quad from your phone. This is kind of crazy that you can do that. I'm going to show you the app. I'm going to walk you through that. We're going to go ahead and connect a battery, and I'll show you what comes along with it. And the street price for this flight controller right now is about $35, so it's going to be a pretty competitive flight controller in the market, mainly because a lot of us have been wanting something like this for a long time, because you get out to the field and you don't have your laptop. I rarely ever bring my laptop out with me, and if I have something go wrong or I need to make a minor change, or if I forgot to do motor setup or something like that, I was in a hurry, props are backwards, motors are going the wrong direction, all kinds of stuff can occur. But this is nice that you can do this on the fly. So first thing you're going to do is go ahead and open up your phone and download the Speedybee app, and I already have it downloaded here from the iOS App Store. I'm just going to open up the Speedybee app. It's going to go into that main screen, and then you're going to take the battery and just go ahead and hook that up to your flight controller. And it runs a battery from 3 to 6S, so you can plug 6S batteries straight into this flight controller, which is kind of crazy. So I'll pick up my phone and show you guys. Right now we can tap to start scanning, so it's just going to wait a second, and it already sees the Bluetooth Speedybee F4 there, so I'm just going to click that. Now it's going to take me into the main screen, and let me just zoom into this a little bit closer, because this is kind of awesome. So once the app loads up, you'll get this top screen right here, and it has all the information on this particular flight controller. You've got your voltage right there. I've got a 3S battery plugged in, so it shows me 12.3 volts. I do have a link right there. I have a gyro and an accelerometer, and no other sensors on board there. I have data flash on there, which is great for black box. It looks like I have 2 megabytes worth of recording data, and I do have a disconnect button right there, which is nice. So I can push that with my thumb, disconnect, or I can go ahead and tap again to go back to it and click on SB F4 again. Takes me back into that main menu. Now, when you first get this flight controller, you'll notice it's sitting on the bench, and it's going to be off level. So the best thing to do before you get started in a lot of these menus and starting to make changes is just go ahead and calibrate your accelerometer. So push your flight controller flat on a flat surface like your bench, and go all the way down to here to where you see calibrate accelerometer. Go ahead and tap that, and you're pretty much going to be level after a few seconds. And if it's not, you need to do it again. And that looks a little bit off there, so I'm going to do it one more time. Just going to calibrate. Okay, as quick as that, pretty quickly. Calibrated the accelerometer there. And that's not quite perfect, but now you can see all the axes there, which is really neat. Just like in BetaFlight. And it comes with BetaFlight 3.3. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it does, which is really nice. So you have a lot of info here, just like BetaFlight, all the same information in here. It even does accept GPS, because the new BetaFlight handles GPS, which is great if you want to do some long range stuff. And on this tab, it is pretty awesome, because we do have a lot of the same type of settings that we have inside BetaFlight. For the ports tab, they have USB VCP. This is turned on because that is what's going to help you connect to your USB port, so don't turn that off. If you do that, you'll have to reflash it with the Speedybee firmware. Also, they do have up to 5 UARTs on here, which is super nice. You have 0RX for S-Bus style receivers, and you can add any of your extra additional sensors on there as well. And if we go down to the configuration tab, this is cool. Just like BetaFlight, we have our props set up, motor direction there. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, just like in BetaFlight. We're on a quad X setup. And the system configuration, we have accelerometer. I'm going to turn off magnometer there. Just going to turn that off with a tap. Motor ESC, we have that set to D-Shot 600. We're going to turn motor stop off, which is what I usually do. You can also turn the motor idle up or down. So if you get that flip of death, turn it up to like 9 or so, and it should avoid that flip of death to the ground. Board and sensor alignment, we're leaving that all at 0. Accelerometer trim, zeroed out. Arming, 25. And we have personalization for the craft name. That's pretty standard there. I put Speedybee in there, so I saved and rebooted there. Camera degree of tilt, you can change that if you want to. Your receiver setup, just like in BetaFlight, again, serial based, and S-Bus there. Our SSI, 3D motor features, we're not doing that. GPS, and the rest of your features down here. Telemetry we have on. We have soft serial for enabling CPU based serial ports there. Telemetry is on. We have OSD, of course, inside BetaFlight and configurable, also in here, which is great. And everything for the beeper configuration is checked. I see a lot of flight controllers with that recently. I usually go in and undo a lot of those, turn a lot of that off. Now, power and battery consumption, same as BetaFlight again. Onboard ADC. Voltage meter, you can turn this up or down by clicking this little negative or positive right there, which is super cool. Go up or down. And I usually turn those down a little bit so it doesn't start beeping at me and throwing warnings up on the screen. Your power state, it shows that we have 3 cells, 12.3 volts, and we've already used 26 milliamp since we've plugged it in. We have our voltage meter there, amperage meter, and this is looking really, really awesome so far. So I'm going to go down to the next tab for you. And now we're in the PID tuning tab. This is great. Check this out. We have everything inside here. If you want to PID tune your quad from the field, so we can go in there and change all of those axes for proportional, integral, and derivative, which is super nice. You just click on that. If you click on it again, it'll go back down. So we're just going to click there. We'll just go up a few degrees there to 59, or you can go down if you want. And if you click it again in the center, it'll go back and save that setting. You also have your rates in there, your super rates, and your RC Expo if you needed any. Down on the next one, we have angle and horizon, which is awesome. You have all of the same stuff in here as BetaFlight. This is so cool. This is pretty much a full-blown version of BetaFlight on the phone. So cool. TPA and TPA breakpoint. And you get your simulation there. If you were hooked up to your transmitter, you would see this moving around once you hit the roll and pitch and yaw axis. Now we're going to go down to receiver, and if I had this bound up with a receiver on it, you see all these channels moving once I had the right port selected for my receiver and S-Bus active. And you have your channel map there. You can change that, or your RSSI channel. Right now it's disabled. RC deadband, yaw deadband, 3D throttle deadband, we're not going to use that. RC interpolation, and you have a preview as well, so when you're moving your sticks you can see what's going on there. Now we'll go to the next tab here, and now this is cool because if we're at the field and we decide we want to change something on the fly, I can go in there and add a new switch, or I can disable something. So a lot of times I usually just have an arm switch for straight up acro, and check this out, and I'll zoom into this a little bit. You can grab one end right here and drag it over and make it tighter or make it wider, and I usually have it pretty tight. When that little bar right there moves over in the center, I like to have it nice and tight around the bar. And once I make a change, or if I want to save anything, I just go to the bottom and I hit save, and it saves that setting to the flight controller. Super cool. So that's pretty much all of the same stuff again, like inside BetaFlight. We have angle, horizon, head free, fail safe, anti-gravity, beeper, black box, air mode. All the same stuff that comes preloaded inside BetaFlight 3.3. So here we can see the preview screen for your OSD, and right now a lot of stuff is turned off, and I can scroll down here to change some of the elements. Just going to go down here, and I'm going to turn on the craft name, because we did set a craft name earlier, so it put it right in the middle of the screen there. And if you want to move stuff around, I'm assuming that I can tap on the screen and move it with my finger, so I should be able to grab that and just drag it down or put it wherever I want it. Isn't that cool? So right in the middle of the screen right there is where I want my craft name. And I'm going to turn off the low voltage warning, because that always kind of irritates me. I hit low voltage a lot when I'm kind of boosting the throttle. So we have a few warnings over here on the right. I'm going to turn that battery warning off. And I can turn on crosshairs in the middle of the screen there if I want, just like that. So now you see that crosshair there, RSSI value, and I can grab that again and drag that around, move that to the edge of the screen. Main battery voltage, very important. I'm going to put that down there. Artificial horizon, if you want, that's going to go straight through the crosshair. The horizon sidebar is kind of like a heads-up display for some type of military jet, but I usually turn that off. It's a little distracting when I'm flying. I like the center of the screen to be nice and clean. We have on timer, which I usually do that, put that over to the right hand side. And you can get pretty specific where everything is, but what I like is it's kind of drag and drop type setup, so very similar to the Macintosh environment, which is super nice. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to hit save at the very bottom. And now I've pre-configured my BetaFlight OSD inside this app. That is like really incredible. And now when I'm done with that tab, I can just go exit full screen, and it's going to go back to the original tabs menu here. So on my left, I can go down one more, and I can get to the motor tabs. And this is interesting because this is a full-blown version of the motor tab from BetaFlight as well. And I can click on yes, I understand, and then I can do individual motor testing with the sliders, motor 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's a really nice feature as well. And if we go down one more tab to the very last tab on the bottom, we see the CLI. So I can go in here and I can do my motor timing. I can do a dump. If I want to share my PIDs with someone else, I can do a dump, copy and paste it, and then text it over to a friend. And you could enter this into your Speedybee flight controller, and we could share our PID setups and all of our settings for switches and everything else. And that's pretty neat. So I can also type version here. And it shows me BetaFlight Speedybee F4 F4 3.3.2, so from May 28th 2018. That's the version that comes preloaded on here, but the app is pretty much full-blown BetaFlight, and I'm really loving this. If more flight controllers came with something like this, that would just make our lives a lot easier, and you wouldn't have to carry your laptop around because you have total control over the flight controller and your aircraft. So let me go ahead and I'll zoom into this flight controller itself. We'll take a look at where you have to solder things up on this flight controller. I'm so excited about the app. I had to show you the app right away, but I'll show you also what else comes in the box. They give you a really nice schematic in the box, and I'll go ahead and show you that first. So also inside the box, you do get some standoffs, which is super nice, and they do give you a capacitor that is nice for cleaning up your video. If you're new to building, you definitely want to make friends with a capacitor. You're going to solder that right onto the back of the positive and negative battery connection right there. You're just going to pull this piece of tape off here, and you're going to actually trim these a little bit shorter. But when you solder this up, make sure you pay attention to negative there on this side, and this is going to be positive on the black side. So just make sure you solder that right on the back of your flight controller, just above your battery wires, just like that, and you should be good to go. So this is the diagram that comes along inside the Speedybee box with your flight controller, and this is probably one of the nicest and cleanest layouts that I've seen for a schematic on just about any flight controller out there. And by the way, Speedybee seems to be a side company of RunCam, so if you're wondering why this is such high quality, well, if it's RunCam based, you know why. Now, LiPo selection on this, like I said, is 3 to 6S. That's pretty awesome. So you can run any type of, almost any type of LiPo out there in the FPV community on this flight controller. And let me go around really quickly and just show you the layout they have. It looks like they want us to use external ESCs, which is fine. You have all your signal pads there, and your ground and positive and negative there. You have your receiver over here on this side. You have your VTX up front next to the camera on that rail. And we also have our buzzer right next to the camera there. we have the XT60 or XT30 connection back here on these two tabs, and LEDs right next to where your power setup is, so for 5-volt LED and ground there. So a pretty straightforward layout for this flight controller, but let me go ahead now and zoom into this, and I'll show you a little closer up. So now you're looking at the front of the board right here, and this is where your buzzer, your camera, and your VTX is going to go. Over here on the far right hand side, this is where your video signal wire is going to come in from your VTX. The next one over is going to be a 9-volt tab for your red wire, which is going to be your positive wire. The next one over from that is going to be your ground. And generally they make the positive tab round, but for this particular flight controller, it's not set up like that. They have the round ones as the signal wire. Kind of confusing that they didn't do the 5-volt tab there and the 9-volt tab as a round hole, and generally they do that, but it's square on this one. So you're going to have a video signal wire there. This is going to be 9-volt, and your ground is there. So the next three over are where your camera go, and those are pretty easy. That's video in, 5-volt there, and ground there. And the next two over, you have your buzzer, which is going to be this square one right here is going to be your 5-volt positive, and ground right there. And this is going to be extra signal and TX settings up here. In RX1 we have signal 5, signal 7, TX3, RX3, DAC, signal 6, and TX1 and RX1 there. Now I zoom back out for you guys, and I'm just going to show you where the motor and signal wires go. So you have your positive and negative here for signal 1. That's going to be your signal 1 wire. It's going to be usually the white wire coming from your ESC, and your positive and negative wire right there. So motor 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the same thing for these. This is your signal wire. This is going to be this round tab right here, and your positive and negative there. And they made positive square and sort of rounded off this negative tab. Interesting to me because it's usually the opposite of that, but this flight controller does things differently apparently. And if I turn it this way for you, you can see where we have our SSI tab right there, 3.3 volt right there. That's for your DSM spectrum style receivers. We have RX2 there. And down here along this rail is where you're going to put your S-Bus receiver. So you have S-Bus signal wire here, your red wire here, and your ground wire there. And also there is no boot tab right here. There's usually a boot button right next to the USB port, but it's actually on the opposite side. So if you look over here on this side, it's right there if you need to reflash the firmware. Now, one thing to note about this app, I did not see a way immediately to be able to flash firmware from the app. So you might actually have to do that from your laptop, but let's just go ahead and plug it back in, and I'll see if I can get a tab to flash the firmware. Maybe they'll update that later, but for now it looks like we have everything that BetaFlight normally has, for the exception with the exception of flashing your firmware. So I'm just going to start scanning and connect to it again and see if we have that option. So it takes us straight into the setup menu, and it does not look like we have a way to flash the firmware on this from the phone. So very interesting. Maybe they will add that feature later, but or maybe they'll send me an email after they see this of how to do it, but I don't see any way to do it. You have a reset settings button down at the very bottom right there that I just found. So very interesting. Maybe there is a way to reflash the firmware somewhere inside this app. But for now, that's pretty much it for the Speedybee flight controller and the app that goes along with it. I think it's a super kick-ass little flight controller, and it has Bluetooth on there, so that's really impressive and really awesome. And the app itself is really, really nice the way it's laid out. It's super easy to get into and use. Everything feels very BetaFlight native in here and easy to navigate, just using a little bit of a touch, and it's pretty responsive. It doesn't lag a whole lot since we are running over Bluetooth, but that's super awesome. You can go in there and check your channel setup. If you're out the field and you're helping somebody, this would be really useful just to check out the way that their channels are moving before they do their maiden flight. That would be a big help right there, without even having to break out your laptop. That is super cool. And you can check on their modes switch, and you can add and delete things. And I love the OSD setup in here, that I can grab things and just move it around on the fly. That's really, really cool. That's going to be super useful to me because I'm flying new quads pretty much every day for you guys. And then I can go exit full screen there and save. That is just the coolest thing. So thanks again for watching the Drone Camps channel, guys. This has been the Speedybee flight controller. This is F4 AIO with all the app controls for BetaFlight right inside your phone on iOS and Android.